Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back on this very bittersweet morning after the match against Villarreal last night. Look, we'll talk about the match and the players. I mean, all of this, of course, is overshadowed by the injury to Carvajal, which is very, very serious. It's the third ACL injury of a Real Madrid defender in a year, which is really hard to believe. But we will talk about the Carvajal situation, but we'll talk about the match as well. This was a good match, not a great match, but it was good. The victory was really, really important. I think we needed these 3 points in terms of, our spirits and our mood and sort of getting back into a more positive state of mind. I think we played okay, not great. But like I say, this was overshadowed by the Carvajal injury. But listen, we will let's talk about the match. I'll give you my impressions of the match. We'll talk about players individually, and I want to separately talk about two things. One, Vini. This match was resolved with two sort of nuclear missiles, one by Fede that was deflected, and an absolutely just impossible strike by Vini. And we're going to talk about Vini because he deserves a couple of extra minutes of our time, and we'll talk about the Carvajal injury as well. But anyway, thanks for joining me as always, and let's talk about this sort of very, very bittersweet match. All right, let's get started. Okay, Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the match first of all, and then we'll discuss, Vini and the Carvajal situation. Okay, the match itself, I don't think was great. I mean, it was sort of good, and the 3 points are probably the most important thing here. The lineup was a sort of 4-4-2. Ancelotti chose to put Tchouaméni as center back. Now, this is something that he's done. He did last year on a couple of occasions. And then the midfield, once again, was, Modric and Camavinga in a sort of quasi-double pivot. Modric a little bit further up. And then he put Jude off to the left and Fede off to the right, very much like he did against Lille. And then up front, he chose to, Vini and Kylian. This is the second match in a row that Rodrigo starts on the bench, which is fairly noteworthy. The first minutes of this match, weren't great, to be honest. I mean, the first few minutes, I thought Villarreal was moving the ball very, very well. I was very impressed with their composure, their ability to retain the ball and move the ball quickly. They looked like a very competent team. We looked a little bit just a step too slow, and those first few minutes really weren't great. They even managed to create a couple of sort of semi-chances, but then as the match progressed, we kind of grew into it. But just when Villarreal was kind of, I think had more control of the match, in the 14th minute, we have the goal from Valverde, which was, a shot from distance. I think Ancelotti has told them to do more of that because it's been effective in the last few matches. It ricocheted. It was a, fortunate deflection. But these things also count. So that goal was sort of very important. And as the first half progressed, it was, even the first few minutes after the goal, I still felt the match was a little bit uncomfortable. Villarreal, was moving the ball pretty comfortably. So the first half kind of got a little better as it progressed, but wasn't great overall. I think the second half was much, much better. I think we managed to keep possession for much longer spells at a time. We managed to control the match. Sometimes to control the match, you have to slow things down. And that's what Madrid did, sort of settling into position. And it started, we started to create more chances. And I would say that by about the 55th minute, this looked a lot more like a typical Real Madrid home match. I mean, we were in control, in possession, territorially. We had more of the ball. And we were looking for opportunities, more patiently, which is kind of what you expect from a Real Madrid home match. Traditionally, it looked a lot more like what we're accustomed to. In the 72nd minute, we had the first changes. We had Camavinga and Kylian came off. In the case of Camavinga, I think definitely fatigue because he did work quite a bit. Militao and Rodrigo came in. And then 2 minutes after those changes, in the 74th, we had that absolute missile by Vini, an extraordinary goal with unbelievable power and accuracy, very little time to set up the shot. And remarkable how much power he put into it. But we're going to talk about Vini in a minute because we need to talk about this player. This is extraordinary. And then at this point, after the Vini goal, the game was much more under control, and a lot of possession, a lot of tentative chances, etc. In the 79th minute, Vini came off with he was sort of complaining of a shoulder injury. We'll see. I don't think that's going to be too serious. Arda Güler came in the 79th minute. In the 92nd minute, Luka Modric came out and Lucas Vazquez came in. And then, of course, in the highlight of the match, in the last minute of play, an injury to Carvajal that didn't look that serious in real time. But, when you watch it now sort of in slow motion on TV, just destroyed his knee. This is a very, very serious injury, and we're going to talk about the implications because this is a very, very big loss for us. Now, before we do that, very quickly, players. I can run through my thoughts on the players. Lunin, I thought, was okay. He had some good clearances. He wasn't really tested too much, so it's kind of hard to really judge him. But I think he was okay. I think he inspires a lot more confidence than he used to a couple of years ago. I think his performance last year has kind of transformed him in terms of confidence. So I think Lunin now inspires so much more confidence than he did just 2 or 3 years ago. But I think Lunin was okay. Carvajal, look, I just, I can't judge him on a day like this. He was a little bit irregular in the first half, but this is no day to critique Carvajal. This is a player that gives 100% every time he plays, who is so valuable and means so much to this club, represents so much to the club, not just on the pitch, but in the dressing room as well. And it's just not a day to critique his play. So we'll discuss Carva in a minute. Tchouaméni, I just thought wasn't great. I know he was playing in the center back position for most of the match. But I don't know, I found him a little bit doubtful at times, a little bit slow and kind of indecisive at times. He was okay positionally, but I don't know. He did make a couple of mistakes. I found Tchouaméni's performance somewhat unconvincing. You guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong. Rudiger, on the other hand, I thought was very good. Rudiger was much more secure, much more resounding. He won pretty much every 50-50 ball, which is something we've become accustomed to with Antonio. He was just, I think, very solid, very secure throughout the whole match. Mendy was a little bit hot and cold. I don't know. He did some good things, some bad things. In defense, he contributed. In transition, he did a few good things, but then he also lost a couple of balls. And a couple of players got away from him, and so it was a little bit kind of hot and cold. Camavinga, I thought, was very good, even though in the first half he did have a couple of stray passes, lost a couple of balls that sort of irritated me a little bit. But I think generally speaking, I think he played well. Camavinga is a player that injects so much dynamism and movement and energy to our play. I think he's in that pivot position, or in that sort of double pivot position. I think I prefer him over Tchouaméni, and you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I just think, Camavinga, especially in transition, just brings a little bit more to the table. So I was happy with Camavinga's performance, and he was changed. Ancelotti took him off, I think, just for reasons of fatigue and nothing else. Fede is just amazing. I'm running out of superlatives for this guy. His physical attributes are just unbelievable. I don't understand how a player can run so much, exert so much energy, play every single minute of every single match, kind of year after year. That Fede is a blessing. He is by far the most consistent player that we have, and he's an absolute luxury. Again, physically, I don't know how he does it. One important observation about Fede that I think you guys may have noticed: he did a lot of switches of play, long passes, switching play. We call it cambio de juego. When you switch from one side to the other. This is something that Toni Kroos was obviously an expert at, and Fede is now starting to do this. He's starting to switch play, with long 40, 50 meter diagonal balls, just switching the play from one side to the other. I think Ancelotti probably told him to do this, but he had 2 or 3 phenomenal switches of play, especially in the first half last night, that were really great to see, because it does open things up. When you move the defense entirely from one side to the other, gaps appear. And it's a very valuable thing to do. And Kroos did it better than anyone, but Fede's starting to do it now, and I'm really happy about that. Luka Modric, I thought he played well. I mean, I've been critical of Luka in the past sometimes for sort of not having the presence in the midfield, certainly against Lille. But I thought he played a very good match. He was a lot more active. He was very active defensively, but also participated really well in transition. He seemed to appear in key moments, and I just found him a lot more present than against Lille. And he played 91 minutes, which is, for a 39-year-old, is just absolutely remarkable. But his composure, and sometimes Modric slows the ball down, but sometimes it's good. I think sometimes you do need to slow things down and to kind of just bring a little kind of common sense and sense of control to the play. And Modric is very good at reading when to accelerate and when to slow things down. And I thought he played quite well yesterday. Okay, Jude, as always, ran himself into the ground. Okay, I say this every single video because it's the truth. I get tired just watching Jude play. I mean, I'm exhausted by the time, at the end of the match, just watching him go to ground and get up, go to ground and get up, sprint, go to ground, get up. It's incredible. The effort that he made defensively, I thought, was excellent, but he didn't participate much in attack. And I mentioned this in my last video, and I'll say it again. When you push Jude, by the way, this is a heat map of Jude last night. Okay, now when you push Jude to the left, he participates less in attack. Now, he's always making an incredible contribution defensively because he's just an incredibly hard worker. But when you push Jude to the left, and Fede to the right, you just get a lot less out of Jude in terms of attack. So I think he had a mixed game, tried incredibly hard, worked very hard, but I just think, pinning him to the left, it's just, I think, the wrong move for him. Okay, Vini was fantastic, and we're going to talk about him now. Vini was just absolutely fantastic. I think he's the best player in the world. End of discussion. I mean, this is not up for debate. He's just unbelievable, explosive, and he has developed as a player. It's unbelievable. Vini was absolutely fantastic. Now, Kylian, look, this is not his fault, okay? Kylian, didn't contribute much, but it's not his fault. This is a player that is playing in a number 9 position, which is not his natural position. Kylian is a player that loves to take people on one-on-one on the wing, 2-on-1 on the wing, and he gets past them. He needs space because he has that incredible speed and that ability to dribble in stride. But it's just not something that happens when you play a number 9 and you receive the ball. There's always 4 people around you. And it's always very cluttered, very crowded. And it's hard for a player of Kylian's characteristics to exploit his qualities because he needs space. And when you're playing a number 9, you're always surrounded by at least 2 central defenders, probably a pivot. And it's very hard for him to exploit his skills. So, I don't think Kylian had a great game, but I just don't know to what extent it's his fault. By the way, I want to address a couple of comments because a couple of you guys have, given me shit, saying, oh, you're so mean to Kylian, you're picking on Kylian. I'm not picking on Kylian. When I said that his arrival sort of destabilized the club, what I meant to say is that the arrival of any number 9, it could have been Haaland, it could have been Kane, it could have been anyone else. The arrival of a number 9, certainly 2 number 9s, it has changed the way we play. It has changed our formation. It has pushed people to different positions. And that has kind of destabilized the automatic 4-4-2 play that we were playing with last year with the wings and Bellingham coming up the middle channel. That is what I'm saying. There's not a critique on Kylian. This is a critique on Kylian's an amazing player that I love. I'm just saying that in this position, it's very hard, and we have changed the way that we play since his arrival. So this is not personal. So, this is just about strategy and tactic. And his arrival has kind of shifted the balance a bit, and we're finding it hard to make that adjustment. This is just a fact. But anyway, in terms of, look, this was a good performance, not a great performance. Like I say, the 3 points were very important, especially considering how we've been playing lately. But of course, everything was eclipsed by that injury on Carvajal, which is really brutal. But we need to talk about the injury. But let's talk about Vini first, because he does deserve an extra minute of our time. Vini is the best player in the world. Period. This player. Let's reflect on when Vini arrived, not as a teenager, when he arrived to the first team. This was a player that was limited. He could dribble, he was quick, but his decision making was terrible. He had no vision. His passing, his finishing was awful. And look where he is now. This I think tells you so much about Vini's professionalism, because in training, do you think that this happened magically? He has been working on this, and you can tell the level of professionalism of this guy because his passing now is unbelievable. Some of those outside of the foot passes that he makes, his vision has improved tremendously. Look at his assists. I mean, he has, and his finishing has become outstanding. And this is a player that would miss the most incredible things. The first couple of years Vini wasn't in the first team, I would get so frustrated with him. My uncle can attest to this. I would get so pissed off at Vini because he would miss the most incredible things. Look at what he has become now. This is the most explosive player in the world. Last night, in the one-on-one situations on the left, this guy is unstoppable. He has an explosive speed that is impossible to defend against. I have not seen, and I'll tell you guys this, I have not seen that level of explosive speed in short spaces since Romario. I mean, Vini can get away from anybody. He's so quick and so destabilizing. And like I say, he has developed into such a complete player by virtue, I think, of his work and his professionalism. So it's really an amazing thing to see this player develop. He's only 24 years old. Just think the amount of football that we have ahead from this incredible player. So he is the Ballon d'Or, and I don't want to hear any fucking discussions. I mean, in my mind, there's just no doubt. Okay, let's talk about the Carvajal injury, because this is a really big deal. This is the third ACL injury of a Real Madrid defender in a year, and that's so improbable and so unfortunate. His season is over. This is going to take 8 to 10 months to recover, and there are two reasons why I find this injury really worrisome. First of all, he's 33 years old, and we know he works his ass off. He plays with incredible intensity. He gives 110% in every match, and he works very hard on his fitness. But he is 33 years old, and you're talking about a player that's going to come back when he's 34, having not played in a year, and we have to be a little bit worried about what condition he'll come back in, and if he'll have the same level of speed and be able to maintain the intensity that he had. It's not something that I enjoy saying, but we need to be realistic about this, and that's the very concerning to me, because we are talking about a 33-year-old player. The second thing that really worries me is the leadership aspect, because Carvajal is a leader, and look what he did last year. I mean, he could be the Ballon d'Or, perfectly, because he won absolutely everything. He was prominent in the most important matches, and he's a leader. He knows how to motivate the team. He knows how to get people in line, and he's an example. When somebody plays with that intensity, it inspires everybody else to raise their game. And Carvajal is one of those natural leaders that we need on the pitch, and we also need in the dressing room. And that worries me quite a bit. The right back position is now going to become problematic. Look, Lucas Vázquez has done a great job every time he's been called upon, and he's done a very good job. But he's a right back that does a good job attacking, but is not as solid a defender as Carvajal. He's not nearly as resounding, as physical, as aggressive. He's just not as good a defender. And I think it does put a lot of pressure on him. God forbid he gets injured. There's some discussion that maybe Militao could play the right back position and leave Tchouaméni in the center back position. That's something that could happen. I think it's possible. We may have no other choice. But I would not be surprised if Real Madrid made a move in the transfer window in winter, because this is just it's not going to cut it. A 33-year-old Carvajal who's out for a year, and Lucas Vázquez, and now you're going to try to push Militao to. I'm not sure that these are very good optimal solutions. I think it would really behoove us to go into the transfer market and buy ourselves a decent right back, because I think we're going to need it. I do have to mention the calendar as well, because all of these injuries, typically exhaustion is something that, causes muscular injuries. But I do think that fatigue comes into play in a lot of these. I mean, look at Rodri at Man City. A lot of the injuries, we've seen so many ACLs. Look at Ter Stegen. I mean, situations where a player doesn't seem to be doing anything dangerous, but they shatter their ACL. And I think that if you're tired, and I think Hugo discussed this when he was on the channel a couple of weeks ago, when you're tired, you might make a movement that you don't typically make. You might lean the wrong way. Like, fatigue does play a factor in these things. And I think that UEFA and FIFA are just destroying football because they're trying to clutter so many games into a season to make more money, because this is about money. And the players are human. And we forget these players are in tip-top shape, but they're human. And they are prone to injuries. And we need to remember that. And I would much rather have fewer matches in a season, but have players in top form, not get injured, and play at their full capacity, rather than what we're doing now, which I think is causing an epidemic of injuries throughout the world of football, and I think it destroying our sport. So UEFA and FIFA, please get your shit together. I know we all love money, but this is really not helping the cause or the sport. So, okay, in conclusion, this is going to be a difficult year. Okay, we've gone from fantasizing about how many Champions Leagues we can win in the next few years. We've gone from that to thinking, what on earth are we going to do this year? Because if you put together the injuries with the way we're playing, it's just not a great outlook. It's just not a great outlook. Kylian's having a hard time adapting to the number 9. We have way too many injuries in critical positions. It's just hard to imagine that this is going to be a great year for Real Madrid. And the only silver lining is that Real Madrid always does better when we're the underdogs. The worse things appear, the more we seem to bring out in ourselves. And we seem to rise to these challenges. So, I think moving from being so heavily favored to now, looking like an underdog, I don't know. I think it historically has always suited us. So that's a bit of a silver lining. But again, things are definitely difficult this year, and it's going to be a tough one. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the match. And I had to address Vini, and I had to address the Carvajal issue. But I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for joining me, as always. And as always, a la Madrid.